So please.
Thank you. A relative's perspective. Behind me are some words which describe emotions of being a relative to a child suffering from ME. I invited my fellow parents from Arame's support network to share their emotions and perspectives. I wanted to include them in this speech as they've meant the world to me during difficult moments. A word of warning might be in place before I continue, since this speech is honest, upright, and without any filters. Our daughter Sophie, the youngest of 3, was an ambitious, active, and cheerful young girl. She had recently, on her own initiative, asked to transfer from her old school to the International English School for a bigger academic challenge, as she called it. The cheerleading team she was a part of were an aspiring elite team practicing 10 to 12 hours a week. After her second jab of the HPV vaccine, she almost immediately sensed something was seriously wrong in her body. She had difficulties focusing in class. She, who was always active and training hard, suddenly became exhausted by climbing a set of stairs at school. Her body was failing her, and she could no longer rely on her limbs functioning when doing handstands, cartwheels, etc. And on top of this, she was beginning to experience severe, very strange headaches. She was 12 years old at this time. During this first phase, we still felt safe, reassured, and totally confident by the fact that we in Sweden have one of the best healthcare and welfare systems in the world. On top of that, we also had a really good GP, doctor, one that had followed our whole family for many, many years and knew us all and our history well. Little did we know. This confidence and reassurance was soon to be changed for fear, disbelief, frustration, economic instability, helplessness, heartbreak, and a feeling of being totally abandoned. The years that followed came with a wide array of emotions. I will describe some of them. Frustration. The inability to receive help in any shape or form made the feeling of frustration a constant companion. We discovered that all kind of aid comes with demands of meetings and certificates stating one's needs and requiring the affected person to physically participate in every step of the process. Forcing a child suffering from brain fog, lack of energy, pain, and ill-being to sit through an endless amount of meetings is unfortunately undoable, which makes this extremely challenging. As if this wasn't enough, getting one of those much-needed certificates also requires a doctor who recognizes ME to issue it, which we all know is like finding a needle in a haystack, making an already difficult challenge a next to an insurmountable mountain. This process is a mandatory part of every single adjustment and adaptation you need, ranging from providing a school situation that is planned around a student with a limited amount of energy and sensitivity to impressions, to getting your student grant, care allowance, additional cost allowance, or as a parent, child support from Försäkringskassan. If I was in the comedy industry, I would do a whole stand-up show just on the subject of those blasted Swedish intygs and the crazy circus around them. Thank you. If you, against all odds, managed to obtain one of those certificates, it was often only to discover that much of the help offered was based on common and standardized conditions and therefore not applicable, as if every ill person have exactly the same needs. Economic worries. When you're denied all kind of help and support, and only one person can work, as the other one has to care for the child who is too ill to be left on its own, your economy suffers badly. When on top of that, any help you might find is from private healthcare suppliers or alternative medicine practitioners, they're not covered by the National Health Service. So you have to pay the full amount for every visit, every consultation, and every treatment out of your own pocket. Severe injustice. Our healthcare system, unbelievable enough, value patients differently, depending on what illness they suffer from, as if you, as a patient, could choose. 2 young girls, very dear and close cousins, became severely ill at the same age, a couple of years apart. One with malignant cancer in the adrenal glands and one with ME. One was immediately admitted to hospital with a whole team of doctors attending to her condition, carefully observing and monitoring every symptom. Experts from abroad were consulted. The family were taken care of and put on paid sick leave so they should stay close to their daughter. Just how we all expect to be taken care of in a situation like that. Even today, 10 years after she thankfully was declared well, after the tumor had been successfully removed, she's being closely followed up and regularly checked, yet again, as we all expect to be when taking ill. The other one, well, she didn't receive any help at all. She was left unattended, unobserved, and uncared for, even though she eventually was suffering severe symptoms from most organs and systems in her body, and we feared we would lose her. She wasn't even being taken seriously. Instead, she was being belittled and accused of being lazy. Utter fear. We realized that no or very few caregivers believed us, even though we were caring for a severely ill child 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We could report the most terrifying incidents, like the one when our daughter had been bedbound, isolated in a dark and quiet room for more than 1.5 years, with the most excruciating pains and symptoms. She one evening died. Or at least that was what we thought at the time, as her whole body suddenly went limp. Her head fell to one side, her mouth was open, as were her eyes, and she just lay there without moving or reacting to anything. Many years later, this was explained to us by Dr. Melsen, Sophie's ME specialist. He explained that it can be seen as a protective function against energy consumption in a body which doesn't have enough energy. When the mitochondria's production of energy, ATP, becomes critically low, the nervous system's communication with the skeletal muscles is reduced, resulting in a kind of paralysis. The body can then use the energy resources for the vital organs, a little bit like when animals hibernate. Or we could explain her reactions to loud, unexpected noise from neighbors running a high-pressure cleaner or a trimmer in the garden, which caused her something similar to an epileptic episode with cramps lasting for hours. Instead of listening with a will to understand and any kind of attempt to offer us comfort or help, doctors both at our healthcare center and the hospital would discharge us with words like, "You need to activate her, she's a teenager. It's all in her head. She's not ill, we've examined her, and her test doesn't carry any proof of any ongoing illness." To be humiliated like that, not being taken seriously, and to be questioned creates a really uncomfortable feeling inside. Completely heartbroken. After suffering for years, still no help in sight, still isolated in her quiet room, and still no ease of symptoms, Sophie was getting to the point where she just couldn't stand the pain and discomfort anymore. She asked for our help to contact one of the clinics in Switzerland and the permission to use the money saved for her future if needed. She had started to prepare for a way to end her life, and our hearts broke into 1,000 pieces. She needed this security to be able to find the strength to continue to fight and put up with all of her symptoms. It was painful witnessing her struggling day in and day out. So I could somehow understand her wish. Relief. We are amongst the very few lucky ones. After many years, we finally found Dr. Jesper Melsen in Copenhagen. I cried with relief after our first meeting. With a huge interest and understanding, not only for the human body, but also for the patient in front of him, he listened and he heard us. What a relief. He understood and recognized most of what we described, and he could explain the cause of many of the symptoms. He also had suggestions on how he would like to treat them in order to get Sophie more stable. Dr. Melsen also understood that for this complex illness, it's not enough only with a doctor who can work with the medical aspect of the problem. You also need someone who understands the functions of the body, especially trained physiotherapist. His colleague, Annemette Da, has worked with Sophie for over 7 years now to put together function by function in her broken body. She has awakened systems that have been paralyzed or out of order for a long time with carefully monitored adjustments and exercises. I struggle to even think where we would have been today without the help and support from Jesper Melsen and Annemette Da. Sophie would not have been alive, of that I am certain. Today, Sophie is soon to turn 25, and during the last 3.5 years, she has finished her first Bachelor of Science in Global Development at Stockholm University. Thank you. Is halfway through her second Bachelor of Planetary Science at Open University in England, and has just started her master program in Environmental Science with Decision Making for Sustainable Development at Gävle Högskola. She's done 1 exchange year at Western University in Canada, spent 1 summer up in the north of Tenerife, 1 summer in St. Lucia in the Caribbean, and done her field studies in Mauritius on a scholarship from SIDA. Does this characterize someone who's being lazy to you? No. With a lot of hard work, there has certainly been a remarkable improvement in her health. But has she recovered from ME? No. The illness is still there, but it is not as active any longer. With careful adjustments, careful planning, some supplements and some medicines, and the support from her private medical team, Emmy stays in the background most of the time, allowing her to continue with her life and her plans, and for that we are forever grateful. A sincere wish. As a health professional, you do not carry all the answers. I am well aware of that, and I don't expect you to either. But an honest and sincere wish I would like to put forward to you all here today who are practicing medicine in any way or are working within social services or other parts of the society is to never ever discharge symptoms and experiences expressed to you. Instead, always listen to the patient in front of you with a sincere intent to understand his or her situation, regardless of what might be the cause. Never ever judge. Instead, always offer comfort and support. Never ever give up. Instead, always be curious to find answers in areas you haven't yet explored or encountered. That would make a whole world of difference to us all, and most importantly, to the patient in front of you. My name is Lotta Svensson. Thank you for listening to my perspective of being a relative. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Åsa Kristoferson Hedlund, and I was actually the first chair of the Swedish COVID Association from 2020 to 2022. Oh, that was difficult to say. But now I am not active, but I'm still suffering from long COVID, and I'm here to tell my story. And of course, I cannot say everything, but I'll try to tell the most important things. This picture is me before COVID, and I think it defines the situation. I'm playing with my 2 kids in the snow, and that was me. When I went to the playground with my kids, I was never glued to the screen of my phone. I climbed up the jungle gym and I went on the swings and I played with them, and I was very active. And this is what I lost, some of what I lost, but this is mostly what my kids lost, and that breaks my heart. Before COVID hit, I viewed myself as young and strong. I don't know if I was particularly young. I was in my early 40s, but I felt young. And I actually did a test of my fitness just 3 weeks before I got ill, and I was in the 90th percentile, February 2020. So that means that I was in the top 10% of fitness from my age. So I was doing well, and I viewed my immune system as particularly strong. I was almost never sick. I never had the flu or like the stomach flu. I was always the one taking care of everybody else in my family. I can even say that I had an aggressive immune system, and by that I mean I developed an autoimmune disorder after having my 2 kids, both times, and that was Graves' disease. It's a disease of the thyroid that gives you very, very high metabolism. But this is treatable, and it went away after 1.5 years. So when COVID hit, I was perfectly healthy and normal. But I viewed viruses and bacteria as something potentially good for me, because that would occupy my immune system, so it wouldn't attack me instead. So I was not particularly scared of COVID. However, I was scared for our society. I was scared for those who I thought were vulnerable. I didn't expect it to be me. I was a bit naive, I must say. I actually kind of thought, oh, it's good to be first to get this disease early on, because then I get immunity and then I can help all those poor vulnerable people. And when I look back at that, I feel kind of ashamed of my way of thinking, because we're all potentially vulnerable and we don't know what to expect. And I don't think there is such a thing as a real strong human being now when I've thought about it. So I got COVID in 2020, March. I got it from my husband, who worked with Chinese scientists. So I got it really early on. And the first week, I only had fever. That was my only symptom. And I felt good. I would have gone to work if it wasn't COVID. But then after a little more than 1 week, I had these high fevers. And I developed, I'm not sure if I can pronounce this correctly, but dyspnea? Perhaps, difficulty breathing and fatigue. But the dyspnea was at the absolute worst. During 2 weeks, I believe I was about 3 breaths away from not being able to call for help. So I was constantly doing everything I could to get as much oxygen into my lungs to be able to call for help if I needed. And my husband, he was by my side all the time, because I couldn't be alone because of this. If he went to the toilet, my kids were there. They didn't know why, because they were pretty small, but I believe they felt it. And I were never hospitalized. So scientists and the medical healthcare professionals, they say I had mild COVID. That's how it's described when you're not hospitalized. Then you have moderate COVID when you're hospitalized, and then you have severe COVID if you are admitted to the ICU. But that's, I think, is a really weird way to think about it, because that says absolutely nothing about the patient. It says where the patient is. And during March 2020, we were told that if you could survive at home, if you go to the hospital, if you could have survived at home, somebody else might die because you do that. I did not want that on my conscience. I would never have stayed at home so long as I did if it weren't for that situation. And we all know that in Sweden we had, I think, the fewest hospital beds for these patients in the EU. I'm not 100% sure of that, but we didn't have many hospital beds. So of course there were more people that were very sick at home in Sweden than it was in other countries. And I would have been admitted to hospital any other time, I am sure. So I would describe my COVID as moderate because I didn't need ICU, but I should have been admitted, I think. But I survived, and I was looking forward to now I'm going to get better after 2 weeks, but there was no full recovery. The only thing that got better was that I didn't fight for my life. I could get a little more oxygen into my lungs, but I was still feeling it. I was still feeling that it wasn't as much as it should have been. I was very, very tired. I had fevers for more than 100 days, over 39 degrees Celsius, but not all day, fluctuations, but every day for more than 100 days. Then I stopped measuring. I also had sudden fluctuations in saturations. My blood saturation of oxygen could go down to 80%, but not for long, and then it will go up again. And I also felt terrible when this happened. But it always went back, and it was difficult because when I said this to the doctor, then of course at that situation, my blood was normal. Well, my blood saturation was normal. I had muscle problems with lactic acid, tremor, and systemic reactions from using my muscles. That means that my body kind of went into shock when I was moving. It's not like when you exercise, you feel like, oh, it hurts and I'm so tired. It's not like that. It's more like if you have a stomach flu and your face gets white or green and you fall to the ground. It's more that kind of reaction from very small movements. We're not talking exercise here. We're talking very small movements. But the most important thing I want to say to everyone here is that I had symptoms that were hard to describe because this was a new disease. Nobody knew of it. And the healthcare professionals and the scientists, they didn't have the word either. If you think about it, for pain, we have like burning pain, stabbing pain. We have lots of words that doesn't mean you're being burnt or stabbed. It's a metaphor that everybody knows what it means because they have experienced it. But when you're suffering from a new disease, you don't have the words for it. You're trying to find them. And I noticed that nobody was listening. Nobody was listening. When I described my symptoms, my worst symptom, in 2020, I said, it's like having a stomach flu, but inside my blood vessels. That's how I described it. It sounds crazy. It sounds like I'm, yoo-hoo. But the thing is, I was kind of right, because now we know it's a vascular disease. And I was not alone in articulating it like this. I don't think the other ones used like stomach flu. They said something else, but that our blood vessels were involved, we felt it, but nobody listened, and it was kind of a problem. There were other symptoms as well, but I think that if there's something we should learn here, is that you can't just have boxes that you have that you check from other diseases. You have to remember if you're experiencing something new, you have to listen more, not quantitative but qualitative. You have to listen to how the patient describes it, I would say. So they were hard to describe. We didn't know what the reason was, but they were not vague. However, they were described as vague, or diffusa, as we say in Swedish. And this is also a problem because it sounds like it's not that serious. But I want to tell you how serious it was. During this time, I realized that the worst thing that can happen to you is not dying. The worst thing that can happen to you is not dying and not getting better. That's the worst thing. It's so horrible that I can't describe it. This resulted in me getting hospitalized not because just because of my symptoms, because I kept coming back to the emergency room night after night after night, and then they said, "Okay, we're tired of this. We'll examine you." So they admitted me to the hospital. Later, I found out that they were going to check if my fevers were actually real or if I made them up. Of course, they did other things as well, like they looked if I had something else, something other than COVID. But they didn't look at the reason, what could COVID have caused in my body? That they didn't look for at all. And what happened? Yes, I was admitted to a COVID ward when they did this. And of course, I got infected again in May 2020. So I had my second COVID infection 2020. That's pretty early. And I developed new symptoms that are consisted with POTS that many of you probably know of. I'm not going to go into that, but it's mostly a circulatory thing with your heart rate goes up when you stand up and you feel all of these terrible symptoms that are very debilitating. I will never know if I was supposed to have them from the first infection or if this was the second one. I will never know. And this is the reality of living with long COVID. You never know which is which. Have I been infected again, or is it the same old disease? I want to say that hope is everything. After 3 months, I see a little Swedish is still there. After 3 months, I had hardly no ability in my active daily life. I couldn't make myself a sandwich in the kitchen without falling down on the floor. And the suffering was intense. I wasn't lazy. I didn't want to just be sick. I dreamt about going outside. That was my big dream, to ever be able to go outside again, to be able to socialize, parent, work, and live a life. And I thought, is my life over? There is no progress. The government doesn't know that I'm lying here, and thousands of others, they don't know. And there doesn't seem to be anybody searching for a cure. And in a way, that's kind of still true. Because today, the government still doesn't know, I'm sorry to say, because there are no ways to diagnose, thank you, to diagnose the patients if there is not knowledge in the healthcare system. So we are still invisible, and there are hardly no money put forth for this group of patients. We're just supposed to get well on our own. And I think it's kind of obvious after 5 years that that's not going to happen. One of the reasons I took off my mask is that I want to show I don't look like this anymore. But this is something else that happened. I didn't just suffer from long COVID. I also developed Graves' disease once again, the autoimmune disorder of the thyroid, and rosacea fulminans. It's a really, really bad skin condition, as you can see. And you would think this is a bad thing because that's an aggressive Graves' disease and that's an aggressive rosacea fulminans, but I was really happy about this. This is a happy accident because now there's treatment. And what happened was I was given steroids for my skin. I couldn't have the normal medicine because my liver was not working properly. So they gave me steroids. And in 3 days, I got my life back. And I'm not saying I got well. I still have, oh God, sorry about the sound. I still have problems, but the difference is I couldn't make myself a sandwich in the kitchen. I couldn't go outside. 1 week later, I could go swimming with my kids and go down the water slide. So you understand the difference here. It was like a religious experience. And my insight from this was there is no permanent damage, obviously, because this is not the result of me working hard. This is the result of a medicine. There's no lack of training because I got strong overnight. And of course, there's no lack of motivation. I still love going down the water slide. But I also got scared because I thought, what's going to happen when my skin clears up? Because I didn't get this medicine for my long COVID. So to sum it up, my long COVID is 3 things. And I'm saying long COVID. It's post-COVID syndrome. That's all of these symptoms that can only be contributed to the virus, to getting infected with SARS-CoV-2. Sorry. And but I also had these other diseases, and they were autoimmune and inflammatory, and those medicines worked on many of my symptoms. But then also I had these psychological reactions, and I think it's important to acknowledge that they exist. And of course you mourn your former health and function, but that was a teeny bit of it. The big part was the stigma and ableism. And by ableism I mean like racism, but against sick people of certain diseases. And we experienced this. I experienced this from the healthcare and from the government, from family. I don't mean my closest family, but my relatives, from my friends, and from work. And this was a lot. And everybody talked about perceived symptoms. I hate that. It means like, I'm only perceiving them. They don't really exist. Well, they do. And the assumption was that there is no physical cause just because the healthcare system couldn't find it. How about thinking about maybe we need to look further? That would have been a good thing. And then it was all attributed to anxiety, worrying, menopause, stress, my usage of social media, and assumptions that my medical anomalies were false. Every time my oxygen levels dropped during real medical investigations, they assumed that the device must be broken. It happened 3 times out of 6 when they measured my oxygen levels. And this has been a pattern for me. I have been described as the liar, unbelievable. That I have been accused, don't you want to get well? When I told them it doesn't work. People have rolled their eyes and blamed me. I've been, yeah, it's been awful, actually. But of course, there have been good doctors. I have to mention them. There are good doctors. But this, and nurses and other staff. And I think all of this boils down to lack of knowledge, knowing more than your doctor. Fluctuations are hard. It's hard to be believed when your symptoms fluctuate, because you don't necessarily have the fever when you go to the doctor. And I think that I'm a woman. 70% of the people with long COVID are women. It's always menopause. It's always stress. It's always anxiety for us. And also I think I don't know if there are any medical health professionals here, but I have to say, there is a cultural phenomena in healthcare and politics to assume that a psychological cause, when they don't know, without any evidence of that. Nobody asked me, are you worried? Were you anxious? Did you have a lot of stress at work? I didn't. Did you use social media before you got sick? No, I didn't. Well, not to that extent, a little bit, of course, but... and it's also a political phenomena to blame the individual, because then you don't have to do the big work, the big structural change. And I think all of these contribute to my experience. So today I'm not cured. I improved during year 1 to 3. And the real reason for those improvements were 2. Steroids. My skin doctor was brilliant, and he let me continue long after my skin cleared. And I'm very thankful for that, but I eventually had to end it. And after that, I have worsened, unfortunately. And it's progressing. I can no longer ride the water slide with my kids. And I can work maybe 25%, but not more. And then also I joined the study for Paxlovid. And most of my symptoms were unaffected by this. But one symptom got majorly improved, and I have to mention that. All of a sudden I could breathe properly. Something happened in my lungs. And for this I'm ever thankful. And that improvement is still ongoing. So I'm a little bit scared standing here without a mask. So this is the ending, because I see that I've been talking a little bit too long. I think that what I need is the end of this stigma and assumptions of psychological causes, because it's not founded in anything. It's not that they've asked the patients, and we're not having a psychosis, 3% of the population in Sweden, I can tell you, we're not. So we need full recognition of biological disease, and also we need evidence-based healthcare. And that means that my doctor needs to know about the medical science of long COVID. And that's what the National Board of Health and Welfare, Socialstyrelsen, has decided not to put in their report. And I think that to give to the healthcare professionals. And I think that's kind of scary. I don't know why they are doing this, but it's scary. We need specialists on long COVID, and that means we must have many patients at the same place with biological knowledge that try to find solutions, what works, what doesn't. And that's what I need. And I think that if I would find that place, I would probably get some kind of medicine that would help me with my probably aggressive immune system. And maybe if I got my breathing problems back, I would get some Paxlovid. But now I don't get any of this. And I'm worried about the future. But it's not causing my symptoms. Thank you for listening.